All right, great. Well, hello, I'm Cameron Cars. I'm a partner solutions architect with Microsoft. I'm going to be doing a Fabric CoPilot overview and demo today. So let's take a look at the agenda here. In terms of the agenda, first we're going to look at the requirements to set up Fabric CoPilot. Then we'll do an overview of its capabilities. Then we'll look at the CoPilot integrated items, and then we'll have a little demo here. So what do you need to do to actually get Fabric and Power BI Copilot set up? Well, the first thing you need to do is have a premium capacity. So that's an F2 or higher. You need to have Power BI Premium, P1, P2, one of those capacities, right? And then you need to make sure your capacity administrator has enabled Copilot features, right? You can do this for the entire organization, specific security groups, or just individuals, right? So what can Fabric Copilot actually do? Well, it falls into two kind of broad categories. We can do insights and analysis, and we can do development. Under insights and analysis, we can create summaries about the code. So we open up a data pipeline, a data flow. We can say, hey, give me a summary of what's happening here, break it down. We can answer questions about the data. We can chat with the data, ask questions like, hey, what were our sales last quarter? Those types of things. We can also generate insights on the data. You can ask Copilot, hey, what key metrics do you think are the most important here? Those kinds of things. Flipping over to development here, we can also do like natural language to code. So you can type in, prompts and it can spit out Python, SQL, mQuery, etc. When you run into error messages and things like that, you can have Copilot explain those error messages and offer, solutions for fixing them. In the case of Power BI reports and RTI dashboards, you can also create entire workloads from scratch. So as of September 2nd here in 2025, the Copilot integrated items are the Dataflow Gen 2, data pipeline, notebooks, the data warehouse, the SQL database, the KQL query set, and the real-time dashboard. In Power BI, we have the standalone Copilot experience. We have the Copilot experience for report viewers, the Copilot experience for report editors, and Power BI Mobile. So for this specific demo, we're just going to look at data flows Gen 2, data pipeline, notebooks, and data warehouse. So let me flip over to the demo here. All right, good. So what I've got here is we've got a kind of interesting demo data set today. So what I have is I have a Starcraft 2 game data for a tournament that happened in August. And so what we're going to do is we're going to look at the data set there and try to determine if the faction you play, so Protoss, Terran, Zerg, or your actions per minute, so how many actions, units you're moving around, things you're building per minute. So we're going to look at whether faction or APM contributes more to the person who is winning the tournament, to your wins. So I have that CSV in Azure Data Lake storage. I'm going to bring that over using data pipeline. I'm going to do the whole thing using Copilot here. So in my kind of import data step here task, I have my data pipeline. I'm going to go ahead and open that. And you can see here, all you need to do to start Copilot is click Copilot button here in the top right. That pulls up the Copilot pane. Anytime you open up these Copilot panes, it's going to give you a description of what Copilot is capable of doing, ingesting data, transforming data, summarizing that pipeline. So let's start with the development piece, right? I want to get Copilot to, kind of do some of this pipeline development for me. So I'm going to copy over this prompt. I'm going to say, hey, I want to, get data using a copy data activity from ADLS to the lakehouse in this instance. Great, so you can see Copilot created that new copy data activity. And not only that, a copy data activity needs a source and a destination. So Copilot's created a prompt for me here to supply that information. And all I have to do is kind of hit backslash and it'll open up all my connections and I can just spit those in. So for instance, this Azure blob storage is the one I want. The destination I'm just going to say is that Lakehouse 001. Have that go off. And now if I open this up, you can see under the source, it did fill in that connection here. I'm going to browse for that specific Starcraft file here. There's that Starcraft 2 data. The destination, it is doing my lake house, which is great. I'm going to select this StarCraft 2 game data demo table. I'm just going to say overwrite because we may need to run this multiple times for the demo. All right, great. Now that that's done, what we can do is we can have CoPilot like summarize what's happening here in this pipeline. So this is great if you're opening up a pipeline you've never seen before, you're trying to understand what's happening, those sorts of things. So if I just ask it to summarize this pipeline, what it'll do is it'll give me, a summary of kind of what's happening here. So it's breaking it down by activity since there's not a lot of activities here. It's saying, hey, there's a copy that's taking it from ADLS to a database. There's another one that's taking it from ADLS to a demo. And then there's a Teams activity on a success, right? So that's really great. What I can have this do is I can actually update the pipeline description. So if other people are using this, they can actually see, what it's doing here. And I can update the activity description. So when an activity fails or something, you'll have a description of what the activity is supposed to be doing that can generally help, with debugging and those sorts of things. So let's just go ahead and update those there. And now I'm pretty happy with that. I'm going to save this. And then I can actually just ask CoPilot to run this pipeline. All right, so those two copy data activities should succeed. The Teams one will fail, but that's intentional. I want to show you some of the error handling that CoPilot can do here. All right, so you can see, as I said, the Teams activity failed here. So one of the cool things you can do with CoPilot is you can actually ask it, hey, why did this fail? So give me these CoPilot error insights. So tell me more about what happened here and how do I fix the problem? So not only does it identify the issue, so in this case, the issue is that the user I'm using to do this demo does not have a valid Teams license, an Office 365 license. And so that Teams activity is failing because I used them to sign into this. So it's identifying that correctly, and then it's also giving me recommendations, which are also correct. It's saying, hey, verify that there's a valid license assigned to them. Check the admin center to make sure that it's the license is active and correctly assigned. So that's kind of the cool things that CoPilot can do with the error handling here. So now I've used data pipelines to move this data over to the lakehouse. So let's go take a look at what that looks like in the lakehouse here. So I've done this import data over to my kind of bronze layer here. So let's look at this lakehouse 001, and you can see here the StarCraft 2 game data demos, the table we wanted. So this is kind of what our data looks like. We've got game ID, start time, end time. We have the map the game was played on. We have the player name, their faction, their action count, the player 2 details as well, and then we have who won the game. So what we want to do now is we need to do some transformation on this data because we want to look at the factions. We want to figure out what faction was the winner, and we want to look at actions per minute. So we have the action count, so that's for the whole game, and we have the start and end time. So we need to calculate duration and divide the action count by that duration to get an actions per minute. So let's use a data flow to do this, and we can use CoPilot as well to help us out here. So I'm going to do a new item here. Let me do it in my prep data. I'll do a Dataflow Gen 2 here. I'm going to call this Dataflow 002, 003. And similar to the data pipelines, I can just open up the CoPilot pane here and start chatting with it. And so it tells you, hey, good place to start is I want to get data from. So I do. I want to get data specifically from the Lakehouse 001. So if I type this prompt in, CoPilot will go out and open up the data source connection. And so it's put in that Lakehouse 001 source. And so you can see it's like, hey, do you want to set up a new Lakehouse, or do you want to pull from the Lakehouse catalog this exact Lakehouse of that name? That is indeed the one I want. So I'm going to click on that. All right, so I'll select the tables I want. So I want that StarCraft 2 game data demo that we were working on here. It'll load a preview. Yep, that looks about right to me. We'll create that connection there. Now, the first thing we want to do anytime we're doing sort of a bronze to silver transformations, we want to clean up these columns here and do those calculated columns that we want. So the first thing I notice obviously is that, hey, start time, end time, the action count, it's all text. It's all text. I want to change that. So I can actually have CoPilot do that for me. So I'll copy over this prompt. So I can say, hey, convert game ID, player 1 action count, player 2 action count to integer types, and convert start time and end time into date time, right? So I don't have to know anything about data flows or what any of these buttons up here do. I can just in natural language talk to CoPilot and have it run out and do this stuff for me. And so I'm going to send out that prompt, and then we can watch as it'll add an applied step here that's going to do those transformations. So you can see here, game ID is now an integer, start time is a date time, action count is now also an integer, which is great. So I can do more than just change the column types. I can make whole new columns. So I need a new column called game duration minutes. That is the time between start time and end time, and make it type decimal because I'm going to do some calculations with it as well. All right, great. So now I've got this game duration minutes. So this is, it's 15.6 minutes, 15.48 minutes. This is looking pretty great. So now what if I want to do something that's maybe a little more complicated? Because what I've shown you so far, you can do with the UI and the buttons up here. But if I want to do something that's a little more complicated where I'm going to have CoPilot write the M code that's a little more involved. So now I need to make a column called winner faction. I want to just look at the faction of the winner. So what I'm doing here is I need to look at who won the game, the winner name, then look up whether that was player 1 or player 2, and then depending on which player it was, reference the player 1 or player 2 faction column. So that's a little more complicated of a query. It's not impossible to do it with the UI here, but if you're a novice or new to these sorts of things, may not be as straightforward as you think. So I can take this prompt here and saying exactly what I just said there, and I can have CoPilot go out and kind of create that logic for me here on the fly. And so what we'll see here is that it's added this kind of if clause. So if winner name equals player 1, so this is the code that it's done here. And so you can see I now have this new column winner faction that is correctly associated. So if winner name equals player 1 name, then player 1 faction. Otherwise, player 2 faction. So doing an if statement there. Now I need to create a column that's going to give me APM. So I want a new column called APM, takes player 1 action count divided by the game duration minutes. Go ahead and round it to a whole number. We don't need precision on this. Awesome. So that's the player 1 APM. I can do the same thing, but for player 2. And so there you go. Player 2 APM is already set up and done, which is great. So that's all kind of the development piece, right? We have insights and analysis, and we have development. So I've used CoPilot I haven't had to touch the data flow at all. I haven't had to write any mQuery code. I've just told CoPilot what I want to have happen, and it's gone off and done those applied steps, which is great. I can also ask it to give me, a summary of this query and the applied steps, and it'll kind of walk me through what's happening here. So let's pull this up here. So it says, hey, this is loading the Starcraft 2 gamma, sets the column types, it calculates the game duration, determines the winner's faction, and computes APM for both players. Great, that's an awesome and accurate assessment of what this data flow is doing. In addition to that, it goes into detail for each of what those steps are doing, right? Like for instance, the navigation steps, what are those actually doing? For instance, so it's navigating to the workspace, then it's navigating to the lake house, then it's pulling up that table, those kinds of things. So then what we do is we would set our data destination to be that data warehouse or wherever we end up putting it. I've already done that, so let's just flip over to the data warehouse. piece there. So I come back to Fabric CoPilot here, you can see, so that was the import data was the data pipelines. We brought it into the lakehouse as our bronze layer. We prepped the data with the data flow here. And, we're pushing that out to this gold layer, which is this data warehouse piece here. So now that we've had that data flow move the data over to the data warehouse here, you can see it's all been moved over. We've got our calculated columns, the game duration, the winner faction, the player 1 and player 2 APM in this table, the Starcraft 2 game data, right? So instead of making a Power BI report to kind of do traditional analysis on this, I can kind of just chat with my data and ask questions about it. So if I open up CoPilot here, you can see that it tells me again the stuff that it can do, but I can be really broad in some of the things that I can ask it. And I say, hey, CoPilot, can you provide me some intelligent insights on this this data set? As you can see here, it's got some suggestions to help you identify trends. So action count by win-loss, APM and faction win rates. Ooh, that could be pretty interesting, because when we started this demo, we wanted to look at, does APM contribute a lot to winning? Does your faction contribute a lot to winning? Those sorts of things. So this might be a really interesting one here. What is the average APM for each faction, and how does it correlate with win rates? So this could be something interesting to ask. So let's go ahead and have a CoPilot answer that for us here. So you can see what it does is it gives me a little SQL query. I can just insert this in. And so what I can do, even more than the kind of steps that the CoPilot gives you to explain the code, I can actually have it explain the query even more to add comments in line here. So you'll see once this loads that it's actually going to, kind of document your code as you go, which is really great. So let's run this command here. So you can see here that the average APM for the Protoss is 159, and their win rate is 71, almost 72%. Terran, it's 152, a little lower APM, and they have a 62% win rate. The Zerg have 154 APM, and they have a 65% win rate, right? So it looks pretty good for Protoss and the Zerg. Terran, not so much. And it looks like a higher APM does contribute to win rate. But let me pull open some other SQL queries here. So this is one of these ones that CoPilot created for me. You can see the steps that it laid out, the inline code comments as well. So let me just run this. And you'll see here we're getting about the same kind of information. This is total number of games, total number of wins, total games, total wins, etc. So you can see here it does look like Protoss has a pretty distinct advantage, almost 7 points over the Zerg or Terran factions. So if you want to win StarCraft 2, you got to play Protoss. So let's look at another one too that's specific to the APMs here that CoPilot generated for me. And so I will run this one as well. And you can see here that I've got my total wins, total games, total APM, and the win rate, right? So this guy, Classic, his win rate was 83%, which is great. His total APM was almost 23,000, and if we scroll down here to Lambo at the very bottom, he had only 11,000, like a 7,000 less actions across the tournament that he did. And his win rate was only 22%. And so if you go down this list here, you can see that it does look like that the more actions you're able to do across the tournament, the more often the better your win rate is going to be. So that's kind of some really cool analysis that we can do. I'll show you one other thing. For instance, if I have an error in my code, let's say I've made a typo or something here, I can say, oh goodness, this query is no longer working. I can actually have CoPilot go out and fix these query errors for me. So I can click fix query errors, and what it'll do, you can see here, yeah, here we go. Here it adds the comment. Change player 13 name. I just made a typo to player 1 name to actually match the schema. When it's a substantial error like that, it can do that. So you can see now if I run this, boom, I get the correct query. So some great stuff that you can do with the data warehouse in terms of just, hey, generating SQL for you. You can ask it, hey, I need to create a view that does X, Y, and Z. Put that into the prompt, get the SQL code back, right? but you can also just kind of chat with it, ask analytical questions, and it kind of gave us an answer to our little mystery of today, right? Is it the actions per minute? Is there a faction? So it looks like if you want to get good at StarCraft 2, you play Protoss and you work on getting your APM really high. So now that we've kind of looked at data pipelines to data flow to the warehouse, let's flip over to doing this with notebooks, right? So if we use like a Spark engine instead of the Dataflow engine to do our transformations. If I come back over here, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new item, and let me actually create it in my prep data section here. So I'm going to create a new item, create a new notebook. And I'm going to go ahead and connect to a new standard session here. I'm going to add a existing data sources. I'm going to connect to that Lakehouse 001 that we've been running those demos out of here. All right, great. You can see I've got that StarCraft 2 game data demo table that we've been working with throughout this here. Now it's linked up to my notebook. The session's starting here. And so now all we need to do is start using CoPilot to write our code for us here. There we go. All right, so the session started. So now what I can do here is I'm going to be pretty broad about this, right, in terms of what I'm asking CoPilot to do. So I'm going to say, hey, I want to load StarCraft 2 game data. So this table here that I've got here, load it into a data frame, right? Maybe I've not done a whole lot of Python before. Maybe I have, and I'm just a little rusty, right? I can ask CoPilot to do this for me. All right, great. So I can copy this code, paste it in here, and you can see what it's doing is it's saying, hey, let's load the default lakehouse into the Spark data frame. It's even saying, hey, it's good practice to limit the number of rows displayed when first, doing this, right? So the Spark DF limit max rows to read 1,000, right? Maybe I want to keep this, maybe I don't. There's only 1,000 records in the file, so either way, this is all right. So let's go ahead and run this. And you can see, great, it's loaded all that into a data frame for me. So now what I want to do is I want to recreate what we did in that data flow. I want to add those calculated columns, the duration, the APM, the winner faction. I'm going to do it all in one big code block here in Python. So I'm going to put a pretty lengthy prompt in here and see what CoPilot can do with it. So, and I'm going to be broad at the beginning of this too. So I'm saying for the data frame, perform transformations to clean up the data for a silver layer lakehouse. Very general. Then I'm going to add some specific instructions. Include new columns called duration, that is the duration between start time and end time. A new column called winner faction, that is the faction of the winner player. And include columns for each player called APM, that takes the action count and divides it by the duration of the game. So let's see what CoPilot can do with all this. All right, big section of code here. So let's copy all this over. Whoop. And you can see here, so what it's doing is it's saying, hey, first I'm converting, those start and end times to the duration, getting the winner faction, each player's APM. Removing rows where the duration is 0 or negative, or where action counts are null or missing for a clean silver layer, right? So this goes back to that first part. I asked, just, hey, do stuff that you would normally do for a silver layer. I didn't have to ask this explicitly. It kind of inferred what I wanted to have happen, which is great. So I'm going to go ahead and run this cell here. So now we should have our new DF silver. All right, looks great. So let's see. We do indeed have the duration, the winning faction, and the player 1 and player 2 APM, which is awesome. I didn't have to write any of this code. CoPilot did it all for me. Now I'm going to want to write this back out to the lake house as sort of my silver layer here. So I can ask CoPilot to do it too. So I can say, write this DF, what we call it, DF silver data frame back to the lake house, a new table called silver Starcraft 2 game data. I think I need to call it 3. And you can see here what's actually interesting is that in this previous section here, it actually gave me the optional, hey, if you want to write this as a silver layer, uncomment this line out. It was already kind of one step ahead of me, which is cool. But I'll copy over this prompt here. And you can see it's that df silver.write format, save as, and then saying, hey, if you actually want to overwrite the table if it already exists, use the following instead. So that's great. Maybe I do want to do that. So I will just uncomment out this line. We'll run this bit of code. All right, so here's something cool that we can see here. So for instance, I've run into a little bit of an error here. So let's see if CoPilot can help us fix this error. So if I actually hit the CoPilot, I can ask help for this specific cell. So I can ask it to, I can hit / to bring up specific commands. So I can say, hey, explain the code, fix the code. Can you add code comments? Can you optimize this? I'm just going to say for now, I just want you to fix this code. Something's not quite right. Yep, and you can see here all that it did was, it's like, oh, yep, you had an extra space here, and this is Python. We care, about those spacing issues here. So I'm going to say, yep, I accept that. Let's run this. All right, awesome. So it's written that game data back out to here. So if I refresh this, we should be able to see. Yep, there it is, Silver StarCraft 2 game data 3 table that we wrote out to there. So now one of the cool things, obviously, we want to do with notebooks is we want to do some machine learning type stuff, right? And so I can actually have CoPilot do that for me too. So I can say, for instance, let me copy over this prompt. I can say, hey, using the, let's say the, what do we call it, DF Silver data frame, create an experiment that uses data to determine the winner of a game. So I'll send that to CoPilot here. You can see what it's done is it's already created this experiment for me. I can actually click on this like reasoning here, and it'll give me like, hey, here's how I came up with the code that I'm doing. The target variable, I want to target the winner name. So if player 1 wins, 0 otherwise, kind of converting that to binary, right? So let's look. Copy this over. And you can see here that it's just pulling in all the right libraries, creating the label, if player 1 wins, L0, indexing, all the features, building the classifier, creating the pipeline, doing the train test and split, and then doing the evaluate, right? And then giving me a ROC, accurate area under the curve. um, index here. So this takes a second to load. So I'm going to flip over actually to a notebook that I have that's completed. So I come over here to this notebook here. Nope, not that one. This one, notebook 001. Here we go. So you can see here the same thing that I did. I did all these Copilot prompts to bring in the data here. I asked it to create a model here, calculating win rate for each faction. It ran that. It created this clever carrot, notebook here. And then what I can also do with it is I asked it, say, hey, can you give me some, like cool plots? Let's look at the faction win rates, these types of things. And it was able to come up with this code that's, using PyPlot and, matplotlib to do these things. So similar to what we were seeing before, we've got the number of wins, winner faction, Protoss, Zerg, Terran. Exactly what we were seeing inside the data warehouse. So really cool stuff that you can do with the notebooks here. And then if I come back out to the Fabric CoPilot demo as a whole, you can see that the this experiment that we saved from that notebook one, it's in the process of like being saved. So I can actually take that machine learning model experiment here, and I can like upload it to Azure AI Foundry, and I can do all sorts of different things with it, tweak it, improve it, those sorts of things. And so it's great to have Fabric sort of as this data center of everything you're doing. And as you can see, everything that I did today, I didn't write any code. I had Copilot go out and do all of this for me. So that concludes the demo for today. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you next time.